Okay, we are live for episode 233.
Three. Yep,
233.
233. Yep.
Cool. Trek Live, how you doing?
Doing great. Really excited to talk about Strange New Worlds. I'm really happy that we did give the end of the season a little bit time to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
It feels right, and I feel a little bit more confident in some of my ranks and stuff. So I'm excited to talk about it this morning.
Yeah, I'm glad that we didn't just do it 2 weeks ago. I think giving it a couple weeks distance, letting the last couple episodes kind of settle in with the rest of the season, and I think I'm excited to talk about those two episodes in particular, but I'm really excited to look at the season as a whole, think about it, compare it to season one, compare it to other recent seasons of Star Trek. How high do we hold it? Favorite episodes, all the stuff that comes with like a end of season wrap up. I'm looking forward to diving into. So we will do that here today. I do want to touch on our rewatch recaps though. It's been a couple weeks. I know you've watched a handful of episodes, maybe at least a couple of them. I'm chugging along. Where are you? What was the last episode you watched?
I'm bringing up my Paramount Plus here. I know I've watched a few episodes since we last spoke, and I know Bill kind of talked about it last week, but it's the season of all the family members coming back.
Yeah.
And I think Inheritance was the last episode that I watched.
Yeah, it's a Data.
So yeah, I think I can't remember last. Maybe
Force of Nature before that.
Yeah, Force of Nature before that. But I'm think last episode. I think maybe was that Dark Pages.
Yeah.
And then Attached. I also watched. So I watched 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not sure how strong some of these episodes are, but it's really nice to get back into the sort of swing of things of TNG and getting more than just one episode of to be able to mention here on Trek Live. But yeah, even an episode like Inheritance, it's definitely world building and some of the backstory with Data. So Force of Nature is definitely the big one here. I think a lot of people point to some of the warp speed limit stuff.
Yeah.
But I really like the day-to-day aspect of like really the first quarter of the episode where it's just really kind of about, Data kind of wanting to train Spot and and then this really camaraderie between the engineers of some of the ships in the fleet. I really like to focus on that as opposed to, some of the other big stuff that they kind of really handcuff kind of the franchise moving forward. I'm not sure if that was well thought out beforehand, but it's I know people really don't like that episode because of what it does, but I like the really just day-to-day aspect of kind of the first quarter of the episode.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there's a lot of scenes of like Data and Geordi crawling through Jeffrey's tubes and kind of wandering hallways talking about Spot, and that's like really kind of refreshing. And I think like having that in the 7th season, living with those two characters as friends for this long, getting to like spend some downtime with them when they don't have like the end of the world kinds of things to be thinking about, worrying about. They're just kind of living their lives and being friends, and I think that's a really cool thing to see emphasized so heavily, and it's definitely my favorite thing in the episode. I think it's a fun watch for that. But yeah, the everything you mentioned about the warp speed limit is kind of silly and not well thought out, like you said. No chance, especially in a world where Deep Space Nine is running, kind of being managed by some different writers and different folks, running at the same time as the Next Generation story-wise. Voyager's coming. Like, you got to know that like they're not going to. Deep Space Nine's going to not be beholden to you know, that level of, world changing kind of story. So a little odd, I think, choice. I think some interesting things trying to be tackled there, environmental stuff, but I think they were a little overly ambitious with the message and what it was going to mean for the bigger picture.
Yeah, I feel like I could fix that episode in like a 15-minute writer's room span. I feel like
Sure.
maybe that area of space is
Yeah.
super thin.
Exactly.
That's just an easy fix there. And then we put buoys up, and everybody goes on their merry way.
Yeah. Something a little more easily contained, or if TNG was it. Like if there was no other show, and it was kind of going to be the end, and you don't have to deal with the fallout of that, in many other shows. I think maybe it's a little easier to sell at the end of the show, but season 7 is interesting. A lot of stories like that. The family stuff is very heavy. Inheritance attached is a big story for Picard and Crusher. I think it's even more important now, knowing where things end up. Maybe as like the sort of kickoff for some of the things that happen down the line. So interesting. You have about halfway. I think you're about halfway through season 7. So
episode 10 I think is Inheritance.
Yeah, so you got some good ones coming up. Pegasus is right there. Parallels is right there. Lower Decks is not too far off. So you got some pick me ups coming with season 7. I'm like halfway through season 4 of Deep Space Nine, season 2 of Voyager. I'm right in the mix of that. Kind of through, I think, the rough patch of early season 2 of Voyager. I think the first half-ish of that season is, I think I might have talked about this 2 weeks ago, so I don't want to harp on it too long, but some mixed bags in there and some misfires as well. Not a lot of big winners, but I think I'm kind of at that point where it picks up a little bit. I just watched Maneuvers, which is like a Seska Chakotay episode that I think is really good, which is refreshing to get a Voyager episode at that point in the show that's like, this is good quality stuff. Deep Space Nine's chugging along really well. I just watched Our Man Bashir and Homefront and Paradise Lost. Some really good. Yeah, season 4 of TS9 does not mess around. It's really good episode after really good episode. That's the contrast, and I think that's where watching them simultaneously can kind of hurt. You're in early season 4 of Deep Space Nine, just chugging out The Visitor and Hippocratic Oath and Rejoin,
home runs,
Starship Down, and Voyager's giving you Twisted and Parturition and Tattoo. Like it's kind of a slog. So interesting to watch them back to back like that. But I'm excited for what's coming, where I think the show's kind of level off a little bit and become a little more. Those which won the week become some tougher decisions are on the way. It's not so easy.
Pretty lopsided right now.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's where we are right now. More to come on that, but let's dive into the topic at hand, which is the Strange New Worlds season 2 kind of wrap up. The last time we really dove into Strange New Worlds season 2, we covered a big batch of episodes at like the halfway point of the show. We did charades through Under the Cloak of War, I think, and we haven't yet really on here gotten to talk about Subspace Rhapsody, which is the musical, and Hegemony, which is the big season finale. So before we get into the bigger picture of like how did the season end, let's talk about the season as a whole. What did you think of Subspace Rhapsody? The musical was a big deal when it came out several weeks ago now. We've had a few weeks to kind of digest it. What did you think when you watched it for the first time, and how do you feel about it a few weeks out?
I was over the moon. I loved it when it first aired, and I still do. I maybe even love it more. I like that it really isn't. It's a typical like Star Trek setup for an episode. It's not just they're singing just because they can sing. It's
right.
There's a reason behind it, and I like the like sheer audacity and just the guts to be able to wrap up so many dramatic like storylines throughout the season with something like that.
Yeah.
That's just really refreshing. And I think 2017, a lot of us coming in were like, all right, I want to see something different, something that I've never seen before. And that's what this episode is.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a show do this. I've never seen, writers and showrunners want to wrap up their, hard work and their storyline with something like this. And I think it's just really amazing. And I respect if the musical isn't your thing, but you gotta respect that this is not like a 90s era show. This is not just recycling some of the same old. So I really appreciated that about this episode.
I think you hit the nail on the head with I think the real selling point here is, first of all, it's not shoehorned. Like it's as reasonable of a like science fiction conceit that creates a situation as anything else that Star Trek's ever done. I mean, like, fine. The way it kicks off and why they're doing what they're doing makes sense within the Star Trek universe as much as any of the other wacky stuff that they've done. And the fact that they use it, like they even talk about in the episode, like the singing is created by like these high emotional, like the things that can't be conveyed through normal conversation, right? And at the back end of the season, when they're kind of needing to wrap up some of these big arcs with the relationships that are core to the show, Spock and Chapel, La'an and Kirk, Pike and Batel, like these things are all being kind of resolved and really pushed forward through this problem that they're in. Things are being said and conveyed and said in ways that they wouldn't be said if they weren't in this position. And there are consequences for those things, big consequences for Chapel and Spock that are kind of created by the music, by having to sing these things and deliver the news and deliver what they're feeling in that way, as opposed to the more normal kind of guarded conversation that people generally have. So I thought it was perfectly done. I think it's a great episode of Star Trek. It's like you said, there's nothing like it in the history of Star Trek. One of the things I keep finding myself knocking in this run of Voyager that I was just talking about is even back then, like there are episodes of Voyager in early season 2 that are of that. I know we just talked about it because you're kind of in it. These kind of horror-y, psychological thriller kinds of episodes of The Next Generation with like telepathic aliens who are getting into people's heads and causing havoc, right? Like how many episodes of The Next Generation are there like that? And then in early Voyager, there's persistence of vision and there's cold fire. Like there's the kind of the same flavors. Even back then was like a thing that marred the show at times. I think where that was the trap that they would fall into that would create some middling episodes or misfires. And you can't say that here. Like this is the answer to that. This is something that you've never seen. And like you said, maybe there are folks out there who are just inherently going to be against the idea of a musical. They just can't deal with the genre concepts there. But if you're open-minded or you're into that, I can't imagine that this didn't work for you, right? Like it's pretty well done. The music's good, the songs are good, like I think everything about it works, and I think it's a great episode.
Yeah, just really all around. Like even the music, I think like took like such great creative liberties with some of the lyrics and stuff. It's really good.
On the X, that's like there's some really good like revealing things about Spock, and I think. Yeah, I think it's going to age really well. I think people are going to grow to. I think because of the music, because of the fact that you can go back to the songs on its own soundtrack. I think that's going to invite a lot of revisiting of this. It's going to make it really rewatchable. It's an easy watch. There are heavy emotional stakes going on, like we were talking about, but because they're delivered that way, it's a little lighter than some of the surrounding episodes, and I think that's going to invite a lot of frequent revisiting that I think is going to kind of I think it's going to go down as a classic over time because of that. So
yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So the finale, the hegemony, with the Gorn, big action, cliffhanger. We're obviously going to cover some spoilers here. It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it's been.
Yep.
So if you're watching this and haven't seen the show yet, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But we're not going to guard against too many things here. But what'd you think of the finale, the cliffhanger, the broad strokes of it as an individual episode? It's kind of hard to judge because it's part one. It seems like, or at least it's such a unfinished product. It's a true, first half of the story that it's kind of tough to have a final opinion about it yet. But where do you sit right now?
Yeah, I think it's really strong. I think it's tough to, I'm sure we'll get into some rankings here at the end, but
yeah.
I think it's really hard to rank any of these episodes because all of these episodes have been so strong. And I don't know, I think, inherently, anytime there is a season finale, it's going to bring out a lot of people's opinions, especially on Twitter. Like, I really notice a difference between, a middle kind of season episode when I post about it and when I post about the season finale. I just think I just get a lot more responses. But no, it felt really big and it felt really confident and it felt really just like classic TOS kind of border dispute kind of episode and setup, and it just felt really core to Star Trek, but also just playing into some of the continuity of the seasons, season 1 and season 2, and I really like that. I think they did a really good job with the Gorn. New character introduction. Well, new actors playing a new
legacy character. Yeah,
a legacy character, but it's a legacy character that we've never really seen, like this era of that legacy character, and so it's just, again, in typical Strange New Worlds casting fashion, they've hit the nail on the head with hit a home run with this casting, in my opinion. But no, I just think the episode was really good. There's some really good callbacks to the Gorn fight. I really did think they did a good job of really keeping similar design to the Gorn, but this Gorn fight is in slow motion. There's some really homage to kind of TOS there with some of the slow motion stuff. But, I don't know. I think it's just all around just really strong episode and feels like a really Star Trek-y season finale. Like this part 2 with this cliffhanger, I think they just did a really good job.
Me too. I was really happy with it. I think there were a lot of really cool, like Spielbergian, Jurassic Park-ish kind of creature feature kind of moments. I think the fight on the Cayuga Bridge, like you said, with the Gorn and Chapel and Spock, is just like perfectly done, like so cinematic, so classic, like action movie. With Chapel reaching for the phaser and tipping it and having to reach again. Spock getting this helmet crushed by the Gorn. Like it's just such a good it's just classically done, good action sequence. And yeah, I think the Scotty introduction's great. I think he's awesome. He's a Scottish actor for the first time playing Scotty. People have pointed out, which is cool. It's in true. I just think the coolness of the first time you see Scotty in the show is like crashing a shuttle that's like jury rigged to high heaven to run away from the Gorn and like land in the nick of time. It's just that's so true to his character and
the miracle worker. Like that's that's so true to his character.
Yeah, that in the cold open you'll know it's him, but like that shuttle streaking across the sky, like who's in that thing? It's Scotty. Like it's really cool. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Like, is he Are they going to do the Kirk thing, or maybe he's recurring in some capacity as an engineer on the show? I mean, I'd like to see him maybe be an engineer like on the ship, but under Pelia, and get it handed off to him eventually. Have him be in the show, but maybe in a recurring like junior officer kind of capacity who rises to be the chief engineer. That's what I would like to see at least. But more to come there. Obviously, well, we'll see what they do. But I was kind of cool on the Battelle stuff earlier in the season. I kind of knocked among the Lotus Eaters a little bit for not being overly invested in the Pike relationship there. And I'm still not. I think some of the stuff in season 1 didn't. Some of the things they did there in season 1 don't lead me to. I don't know. I just have never been emotionally invested in that relationship, but I felt it here. I mean, I definitely felt the urgency in Pike, and I felt the stakes on Anson Mount's performance, and I bought it. That she was in real danger, and he was very concerned about it. That drove a lot of the drama here, and I think it drove the emotional place he's in at the end of the episode when he's standing there and doesn't know what to do. Some people were knocking that as the captain of the Enterprise should know what to do and shouldn't freeze up. I don't agree at all. I think that makes him more human. I think the fact that he's got his friends over on the Gorn ship, he knows what's happening to Battelle in sickbay. He's kind of it's a no-win scenario, and I think it makes him more human that he. I think the way Anson Mount plays Pike all the way throughout this is that he's incredibly human, and he has faults, and he makes mistakes, and he's not afraid to own them, and he asks for help. He doesn't always have all the answers. He leans on his crew for advice and answers to problems. He's not like a technical know-it-all, and doesn't always have the best solution on his own mind. He needs everybody around him to open the doors to get to those good decisions. And I think everything that he's been up to this point, I buy that he's standing there and he needs a minute. Like it's a real dire situation, and he doesn't. I mean, what would you do? Nobody knows what they would do in a situation like that. It's a real quagmire, and I love the ending for sure. I love the cliffhanger. I didn't see a cliffhanger coming. I had no idea they were going to do that. It's the first true cliffhanger, like to be continued like that since Enterprise. Most of the seasons in New Trek, really, if you think about it, Discovery especially, like they kind of end finally. Like there's little things like the Enterprise pulling up at the end of season 1. Like there's things that like make you curious about what's coming in the next season. But because of the way Discovery kind of builds their seasons as like that's sort of the episode, the bigger picture episode, that the finale usually kind of ties up what that story was. So there's not much room for like a straight cliffhanger. Season 2, obviously, the flying through the wormhole and off into the future and not knowing where they're going to end up. That was a cliffhanger. But there's some finality too. This being a true, like you're standing on the bridge in the middle of a crisis and bang, cut to black, and you're going to have to wait. It hasn't really been done like that harsh of a cliffhanger since Enterprise. And I didn't know. I didn't see it coming. It was a surprise to me.
Yeah, which I don't know. In the current climate we're in, some of this writer's strike, I'm kind of happy.
Timing's not great.
Because how long are we gonna have to wait? To be able to see the conclusion to this cliffhanger. But I don't know. We'll see.
That's the big conversation. I mean, that's, of course, they do this when the writer strike's happening and the actor strike's happening, and it's going to create a very long hiatus.
A long to be continued.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, and that stinks. But I'm glad they did it. I think it was a cool classic Star Trek throwback, and it was such a core. I mean, back in the '90s, every season almost had some sort of a cliffhanger. Yeah, they always kind of ended on a to be continued. So very much felt like a throwback. Good. What are you gonna say?
My only knock is like Chapel being the only crewman alive. Oh yeah, that seems a little.
That's a lot.
That's a big ass to me. Yeah, to be able to, she's the only crewmen that survived that attack. I find a little bit hard.
Yeah, if she wasn't, Spock didn't seem to care too much, and that whoever was left hiding on that ship is met a pretty bad end, crashing into the Gorn, jamming, whatever it was. That's to me like the big hurdle. I mean, obviously, dramatically, it creates the situation that's juicy and that the show wants to generate, but that's a heavy ask for sure. I mean, I think they would probably couch it in. I don't know. I mean, there's no easy answer for it. If Chapel could survive, you would think other people would survive too. What are the odds that she's the only person alive on the ship? It's one of those things people are going to have to either buy or not, and how heavily damaging you find it to the episode is going to determine how you sort of stack it. I can go with it, and it doesn't ruin it for me, but it definitely was a little bit of a what really. But it's what they do with it. I think is fun. I think the Spock. I love the moment when she's like in the corridor and she hears somebody like up in the Jeffries tube or up in the corridor in the ceiling pushing buttons, and she thinks it's Spock, and she says Spock and like turns the corner and looks, and it's the Gorn dude in the spacesuit. That's a real good
full grown
Gorn. Full grown Gorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cool surprise. Yeah, there's just a lot of good stuff. I think the drama of it, the action, the tension, the individual set piece, like big scenes, are all really really strong. It's a big swing, but it feels kind of like back in the day when you would sit all summer with part one in the books. You know it's good, but until you see part two, it kind of is a sort of incomplete. Like you don't quite know how to
in limbo,
completely judge it. Like whether how strong or not part two is, or the conclusion is, will kind of settle like exactly how strong the whole thing is. I think. What do you think about the season as a whole? How the season wrapped up with the last two kind of collectively, and then like looking back on the whole 10 weeks. How did you think compared to the first season? Just general overall, high level looking down.
I think this is going to go down as probably one of the greatest seasons probably ever. It's so consistently good. It really does the episodic thing really well, but it's got some storylines running through the season that I think are really strong. It's I don't know what else to say. It's really really good, and it really gives me hope in that, because I think they were, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but weren't they writing this when season 2 was coming out? Like they didn't really have feedback on some of these characters, and I just think that man, it's really good. It is really good.
Yeah, I think they were shooting. I think they were halfway through shooting season 2 when season 1 premiered. So season 2 was all kind of written without having seen what people reacted to, how people responded to the show. Which is impressive. That's generally not the case, I would think. But it. No, I agree. I think for all the episodic talk, and it certainly is. We just talked about a musical and a big action, rip-roaring season finale back to back. The episodes are very individualistic. You can pop one on very easily in old school fashion. But there are a lot of ongoing threads that are pulled together throughout the season. The relationship stories are built on a foundation of several episodes, and some of that's what's the most satisfying about the show, I think. Seeing those relationships evolve and getting that emotional continuity on top of the episodic, story of the week kind of structure, tone of the week. I think that's the hallmark of the show. Its ability to kind of do both, to offer up these varying genres and tones, but not hit the reset button every week to the point where you don't need that. There's no emotional benefit to following along and getting invested with characters to the point where, the thing that happens next week matters to you, and what happened the week before will impact, what's to come. So I think they've kind of found the magic sauce for Star Trek in a lot of ways by offering these different tones and genres, and letting the episodes stand on their own, but remembering that it's a people show and it's about characters and the relationships and the friendships, and that's sort of the kind of thing that binds all the shows, and they all kind of do it differently and emphasize different things to deliver that same feeling. But this has found its own way to do it.
Yeah, I love hearing the criticisms of like, man, it feels like Whiplash, like week to week tonally, like, and I'm like, no, that to me that is a positive we get to go from, Under Cloak of War. It's really good. I think that is a positive as opposed to a negative.
Me too. Yeah, I mean the old shows were like that. I mean you would get the same Whiplash feeling then. Maybe not as extreme as the musical. But the shows that's what Star Trek is. I mean, it's at its core, it's kind of flexible that way, and it's always been. You can go back to the original series. It's I think baked into the DNA. Do you have I don't think do you have a favorite character? Do you have a favorite story thread? Like what kind of pops to you the most when you watch the show? Is there a thing about it? Does it all kind of soup into the same thing? The cast of characters and stuff, or is there something about it that
I think
draws you the most?
I think what draws me the most, and I can kind of confidently say this, is like the La'an storyline. And I know a lot of people point to Spock Chapel stuff and Kirk dealing with Kirk. Well, I guess Kirk you could say as well, but but I don't know. It really surprised me early on that she was off the ship. I thought she was going to kind of take a back seat, but she really, in my mind, it really wasn't. And so I think that storyline is probably my favorite this season, which is crazy to think about because I was always shipping Chapel and Spock, which again I like that storyline. Maybe a little bit some more legs, just them as a couple, but which we might get. I don't know. It's going to be like Corby's coming, but it just really surprised me with kind of the ups and the downs that that the La'an storyline took this season, and I think ending kind of on a down note really. I wasn't expecting. I was hoping for just silly happy ending, but didn't really get that. And
no,
she's got some really good stuff in Subspace Rhapsody. I can't take credit for this, but because if another show that really does a good recap is obviously Trek Ranks does a really great recap. But Jim was saying that her kind of delivery to Kirk is under her control, some of these in the episode Subspace Rhapsody, because they don't have control of this kind of feeling, and so that's what makes the singing start. And so her going in there not singing, I think really solidifies her taking control of her emotions and going and doing that. And I love that little thing that kind of Jim pointed out, so I can't take credit for that, but it's just a testament to how great this kind of storyline was throughout the season. It's really ups and downs and ebbs and flows throughout each episode that it really surprised me and kind of really solidified my favorite kind of arc and storyline of the season.
I think I said during Subspace Rhapsody, I think I said it out loud during that scene with Kirk, that I think she's the best actor on the show. I think her struggle is so classic Star Trek to me, the sort of trying to find your own identity despite how people see you, how people perceive your name, how you. I think a lot of the time, especially with Lon, she projects a lot. I think she thinks people think the Noonien Singh thing matters more than it does, if that makes sense. I think it's more about how she feels about the name than the actual people around her do. And I just think the way she plays that is is tremendous, and I think it's like I said, just a classic Star Trek. The Star Trek's loaded with characters who are all dealing with like kind of the same thing, whether it's the Doctor or the Seven of Nine or Odo or Data, these Spock, like the questions of like who are you and how do you like claim your personhood and be proudly who you are,
Yeah.
and that's her whole arc with Kirk, like the falling for Kirk in the past, the version of him that doesn't know all the baggage that she's carrying is just really well conceived and like I think really well executed. And like I kind of agree. I mean it's hard for me. I don't know who my favorite character is. I asked you a question that I can't answer myself. I don't know. I mean the easy answer, the gut check is because he's the captain. It's Pike in a lot of ways. But I actually feel like this season he kind of took a back seat a little bit. Like he's there and he does a lot of really good stuff in a lot of these episodes. But his heaviest episode is my least favorite episode of the season, which is the Rigel 7 among Lotus Eaters. But he's amazing in the finale. He's amazing in those old scientists. I think he's always great. I think Ethan Peck's amazing. I think Rebecca Romaine's amazing at Astra for Aspera. Like it's hard to choose one, but I think this season I think I might agree with you. I think it's La'an. I think that's the best storyline or my favorite storyline, the one that resonated the most with me. And I think the relationship with Kirk is just really well done and unexpected. Kind of like you said, it ends in kind of a heartbreak. Like, man, she cannot catch a break. Like, she just can't, and it's tough. But I think it's really well done. I think she's amazing.
Yeah, and I like that it. With Kirk, it doesn't really play into kind of his stereotype where he's like always getting like the girl of the week. I like that it's kind of more driven by her and
he does the right thing.
And he does the right thing, and it pains me, but I feel like that they do a good job of kind of lining up semi with canon with Dr. Marcus and all that whole thing. I appreciate that.
I think it was Larry Nemeczek who I was watching said like, in his headcanon, and I kind of love this, in Space Seed, maybe one of the reasons Kirk gives Khan that chance on that planet is that connection to Noonien Singh. Like that's
mind blowing. Yeah. That makes sense. Oh my gosh!
Like he has that like connection to La'an, and maybe he's not all bad. Maybe he's worth giving an opportunity to. That aligns for me. I think that's really good, and that's the kind of thing. And I think that's what this show does. This show is loaded with things that, whether it's the Spock Chapel or the La'an and Kirk, like there are things that on the surface, the Gorn stuff. If you look at it like rigidly on the surface, you can say, man, this doesn't align the way I want it to, and it creates these discontinuities that are annoying. And if you're super rigid about everything and you're not flexible, that's how you're going to be. But if you're open-minded and you give it a little extra, work, and you're willing to go with it a little bit, you can find these ways to like open it up and almost make these motivations that happen, or these decisions that happen later in the show, in the original show, the TOS, even better, even stronger, even more interesting. Like we said with Discovery years ago, with some of the stuff with Burnham and Spock and Sarek, like things that you just took for granted for many, many years over time, have new things to think about again. When you watch the original series again, there are different things rattling around in your head, and it's a new show again, which is like a really nice gift to give the original series, a 60-year-old show almost now. Like new life, new things to consider, new context to watch through. Like that's
so
great thing.
Crazy and it's not just like I don't know, semi big things with say Chapel and Spock. It's like this little small decision, not small decision. It's a big decision in an episode, but I'm saying like in an episode like Space Seed, it's like just one little. That's crazy.
Yeah, like the easy thing for Kirk to do would have been to take him back to the Federation and let the Federation deal with it. Put him in a penal colony or let them deal with it. And he makes this decision to give him a planet and basically say you guys are on your own, but you got a chance to build something here. And that's been there for 55 years, 56 years, however long now. And Um, you know,
Whoa.
now this gives you a little something extra to consider when you watch Space Seed, and it's kind of neat. And I just got
And the
to be
show,
open minded.
yeah, show's not done.
No, yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
It's
hopefully
clearly
we're not even halfway.
yeah, hopefully not. But it's clearly working its way up to by introducing these various Kirk and Scotty. You know, I think it's clearly working up to a place where it's going to end with. I think their obvious goal is to end at a place where okay, the original series, off we go,
Yeah.
and with all that new context and new things to think about that we're talking about. Um, it's a like I said, I look at it like it's a gift to the original show. It's providing new life and new information and context and juicy details to a show that's been off the air for 60 years that has a cast of actors who are mostly not around anymore. Like it's giving a show that old and that beloved even new life, and I think that's a really cool thing. So, uh, yeah, the season as a whole I thought was fantastic. I don't know which one I prefer from one or two. Yeah, I'm tempted to say two. I think two's stronger as a whole. I think there are less episodes that I'm mixed on in season two. I'm more solidly thumbs up on more of the episodes. Um, yeah, and I think the cohesion of the story arcs is really pretty fantastic and really consistently well done. Um, so yeah, I think it's one of the better seasons of Star Trek ever, and certainly in this era.
Yeah, I would agree. It's season 2 for me. I prefer season 2, but
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, it's really good.
I think season two, the thing. I think season one does a lot of really nice things with the supporting cast. I think they all get episodes. Everybody has things to do for the most part. But I think coming away from season one, it did at times feel like a Pike Spock show. A lot of the time, like they were the heaviest and most heavily featured, most consistently heavy hitter, bringing with screen time and important story stuff. Where I think this season, I think really like leveled out the ensemble and allowed the wide berth of the cast to carry a lot of weight.
Which is hard because that's like season 1 is more like TOS, because I feel like
Yeah.
TOS is such like the
Kirk,
big three. Yeah, so it's I guess that's a really good point, because yeah, it's structured more like TOS, and that yeah, it's a great point.
Yep. Do you have a favorite episode of the season? What's your gut say? Like, what's the first thing that actually pops into your head?
I think I have to go with Ad Astra per Aspera. Like, it's just, I don't, it's between that and like Those Old Scientists, I think, and it's like I struggle with the inner fan in me of like, do I just go straight with like the fandom, or do I like, all right, if I'm showing somebody this show for the first time, which episode do I want to show them to kind of encapsulate like what is Star Trek?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that episode to me, so I'm gonna have to go with that. But Those Old Scientists is right there, I think.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah, I'm torn between those two as well. The one that's kind of coming up, and maybe by the time I hit Strange New World season 2 and my rewatch 4.0, and I'm with the episode ranks and stuff, it could be Subspace Rhapsody. Maybe it's possible, just because of the uniqueness, and it's Hegemony is the season finale and the big ambitious things are getting. Like, it feels the most urgent, obviously, from a plot standpoint. But Subspace Rhapsody feels like the emotional season finale. Like the story, like the emotional storylines and the relationships are the big landing. Like it just feels urgent to me in a way that feels like it's going to get elevated by that. So that's a big one for me. But I think Those Old Scientists is probably the one that I'll have the easiest time just like throwing on. Not that I'm one to do that very often, but sometimes with the new shows I will. Uh, it's kind of surprisingly endearing. I knew it was going to be fun. I had a good feeling that it would have obviously the sense of humor and the levity and all that. But I think the Spock Chapel stuff is kind of like the most critical point in the whole season for that relationship is in Those Old Scientists when Boyne was talking to Chapel. I think the whole decision that Chapel makes is kind of driven by that conversation in the turbo lift. I think the stuff she's singing about in Subspace Rhapsody and I'm Ready is because of what Boimler tells her and what she learns from that conversation, that this thing's dead on arrival. There's no end game here. History says there can't be an end game here with this. And I think that carries a lot of weight for me. But I think the connecting with your heroes, the way I kind of talked about on Twitter, I feel like when it came out, I think I said it on Twitter, that it's the best episode about being a Star Trek fan that Star Trek's ever made, I think. And that's my like gateway to, yeah, that's a classic, and it's like one of the all-timers for me because it's so meta about us in a way that Star Trek isn't always kind of aiming at talking to. Like it's talking to us, but like talking at us the way that Those Old Scientists does is unique. But I love Ad Astra. I think Tomorrow gets stronger and stronger as time goes on. I think because of the stuff in Subspace Rhapsody, I think that episode is even more potent and powerful.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah.
Just really good. And I think about Under the Cloak of War a lot. I think that's going to age well. I think because it's
me too.
Because I think it's got like that Tuvix kind of effect of the debate and the things to talk about, and that's going to be a conversation piece. Like that's going to be something that people are sitting at bars at Star Trek conventions arguing about in 25 years, and I think that keeps it in that upper tier over time. Not everybody's going to agree on it. Like people will knock it for disagreeing with the decisions and the things that the characters do, but it's going to be one of the more discussed episodes of Star Trek, certainly from this era, I think. I think it's good. I think it's really good. I think the performances are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just think
that it's curious to see like such a heavy episode that I think that because it takes so long for us to process and kind of work through, I feel like it always ends up being really lower and being really like knocked at the really beginning because it's not easy for us to just put it really in a box as like, as opposed to maybe something like, I'm not knocking this episode, but like Lost in Translation, like that.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for us to put that in a box as opposed to some like really, really heavy wartime like storyline. It's so
dramatic.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and it's truly because of the style of the show and the episodic approach. It really is like, what's your taste? Like I think Lost in Translation is going to resonate with people because of the way it resolves, the building blocks to these connections with Kirk and Uhura, and eventually Kirk and Spock at the very end. I think that the power of those last few minutes of that episode is going to be enough for a lot of people to like be up. And Jim, our friend from Trek Ranks, is like that. He has that episode way up high, and I think he would probably, I know he would. He would say it differently than I'm going to here, but he would cite these subtle, beautifully rendered character introductions and things that are like kicking off what we know down the road, like that. That's important to him, and that creates that episode, rising in his like kind of stacking of them. Where for other people, maybe the science fiction story of the aliens in the nebula and in the deuterium and the telepathic attempts at communication, like that might be more like kind of status quo Star Trek and cause a little bit of a sink into the more middle of the pack. It's an interesting. It's nice to be able to have these conversations again about Star Trek, where the episodes are like that, like where depending on your taste and your flavor of choice, it really could determine where you put them and how you feel about them. Let alone the like you said, Subspace Rhapsody and Those Old Scientists, like the real unique swings of the comedy or the war story of Under the Cloak of War. So. Back. So Real quick, what I'd like to put up here is this is not the most reliable. I made a mistake doing this. Remember the polls I put up on Twitter?
Yeah.
So the mistake I made was I did it after the 8th episode. I should have waited until after the 10th episode. Because when I did it initially, that first thread of the first 8, that really popped. And a couple, 800, 900, 1,000 people voted on those first 8 polls. Well, I didn't get those numbers for 9 and 10 because they were kind of just one-offs.
Yeah.
That were meshed into the... So, they're not... 9 and 10, I'm not as sure about the data as I am 1 through 8, but I do want to put this up. This is the kind of the final results for how the polls determined the rankings. This isn't us. This is how the average vote kind of came out. So the way this works is, and I think I mentioned this the last time we talked about Strange New Worlds, but if you're watching this for the first time, those polls that I posted were asking people to vote on each episode, A, B, C, D, or F. Like, how would you grade the episodes? And A is 4 points, and B is 3 points, C is 2 points, D or F are 1 point. So I take all the data, put it into a spreadsheet, comes out with a score from 1 to 4, weighing how many votes went to each score, right? So this is just a straight up stacking of the episodes based on those results. And kind of aligns with what we're saying here. Those old scientists at Astra Perspera kind of being the favorites with Hegemony, tomorrow being on their tail. Subspace Rhapsody is 7 out of 10, which I think makes sense. It had less votes than those first 8 episodes did, but I think because of the divisiveness of the musical
I think that's kind of... Yeah. It might... Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That feels kind of whatever.
True. It feels aligned with what we saw on Twitter and people reacting.
Yeah, at least from Twitter. Yeah. And then, some of these might change, especially with the season finale. Like, who knows what part 2 is going to do to that. And so, again, but I think you made a great point, Bill, because, Under the Cold War is, right there as far as, something that I think you're right. With time, it might maybe swap tomorrow, or maybe jump up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So the color coding, the red episodes are averaged to 3.5 out of 4 or higher. The yellow are 3.0 to 3.49, basically. So kind of creating a tier system there a little bit. Broken Circle and Among the Lotus Theaters kind of at the bottom of the pack. I think that's pretty consistent with what you would find just talking to people. At least in my own experience. Charade's kind of a few steps ahead of those two maybe, but towards that terrain I think kind of makes sense as well based on just the general consensus I was picking up on as the season ended. But yeah, I think it's interesting to look at this as a time capsule kind of a thing. Again, letting time go by, letting a season sit for a year, or letting part 2 of Hegemony, or whatever they call it, whether it's Hegemony Part 2 or another episode name, how that story gets resolved could shake this up. Time will certainly shake it up. But as a sort of right in the wake of the season, how did this look? I think it's an interesting thing to put up there and take a look at.
I always go back to Lethe. I feel like, in early Discovery, I feel like we were just so quickly to crown some of those earlier episodes before that. But I feel like now, that episode, I think is really... I always go back to that for some reason. I don't know why. But
you're right, because I think when it aired...
over time, it just
Yes, that's one that I think over time has risen. Maybe some people... I think it was pretty well liked from the beginning, but I think over time it's really gone up. That's going to factor pretty heavily, I think, in what are your favorite episodes since 2017? That's an episode that's going to get picked out of the 160 some of them that there are now. There's
early Discovery was Context is for Kings. That's the one. That's it. But now it's we don't know.
Lethe, yeah. Lethe's as important as any episode of Star Trek from this era, for sure. I think that carries as much dramatic weight and impact to the continuity and the big picture of Trek as anything that's come out. I think Lethe's a classic. And I think that's a good example. I think that has grown over time. Yeah. So it's certainly not a final answer. It's going to change. It will. It always does. The more people watch it, the more time goes by, and people's perspectives change. There'll definitely be some shifting going on there, and that can be fun to. That's why I like doing this. I like to have that early data to compare, hopefully with down the road when there might be different opinions. Real quick, I'll just change it to on the screen now will be what's called what I call passion index. That's the A vote share of just the sheer number of the percentage of A votes and less of an average score. The divides here are a little different. The stacking is even a little different. Oddly enough, Under the Cloak of War is third.
It's higher, yeah.
Yeah, with 64% of or 66% of the vote was an A vote for Under the Cloak of War. But I think what that tells you that it's third here, but like fifth or sixth, I think it was fifth in the just the average score is kind of what we saw. Like some people were giving it a C or a D or an F because of issues with how the episode resolves itself, choices that Mbenga makes. Maybe it might drive some lower votes to kind of balance out those A's. Lost in Translation finishes a little lower here. I think it's kind of Lost in Translation. If you look at the poll results with about 1,000 votes, is kind of a split between A and B. It's like what's this, 48.6. I think it's like 44% B's. Like very few C's, very few D's and F's. It's kind of a split decision between A's and B's. But a lot of B's. A lot more B. I think that might have the most B's other than Lotus Eaters and Broken Circle. They both had a lot of B votes. But of the upper tier episodes, Lost in Translation has a lot of B's compared to Tomorrow, Subspace Rhapsody, episodes like that. So, yeah, just interesting things to chew on and think about and get outside of our own heads of how we see it. Like that, I like to do that.
Yeah.
I like to kind of gut check myself and just not to change my own opinion. I mean, I feel the way I feel, but it's interesting. But feel like what do I feel differently about, and what do people agree with? And I think those old scientists at Astra Perspera and both of these views of the data kind of get elevated up maybe into a tier of themselves as maybe 1 and 2 in the general consensus, which is interesting. Yeah. So, what do you want to see in season 3? Is there anything that they haven't done that you would like them to do? Like you don't even. How do you answer? I know.
I mean, with a musical in this season, like how does anything like not like off the table? In season 3.
Yeah.
I just I would like to see like the continuation of some of the really like legacy characters, but in different. Just they see how different they are now as opposed to what we like. I don't want them to just quickly just go into like I like seeing a Kirk speech, like a true Kirk speech, better than anyone. But I'd love to see more Sam Kirk because I think his unfortunately the end of that character feels really. Really harsh and kind of out of left field. So I think making that kind of, I'd like to see kind of that kind of be addressed. So it makes it feel a little bit better, but no, it's hard because again, I'm worried because I don't want them to get too much input and then them kind of go away from the lightning in a bottle they were able to capture this season when they didn't have really any feedback or anything like that. So it's hard to keep all that outside noise and just keep in the writer's room and keep focused. But no, I'd love to see more of like the Chapel Spock, how that uh,
evolves.
evolves, and I think I don't really want to see Spock go straight logical right away. I'd love to see him, go even off the rails even more to where he swings back a little bit. I think I don't know. We'll see how that goes. He might just go to the Spock that we know. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's just so much in this era that I'd like to see addressed, but I'm excited for hopefully season 3, and it not be the last season of Stranger Worlds.
Let's hope not.
I think
The show could
3,
run for
5,
a
and
long time.
7. I think are like the typical, at least in today's day and age. I think are the
Magic numbers. Yeah.
magic numbers of cutoffs. So if we get to season 3. I think if we get renewed for 4, I think that's okay. We're going to 5 then, which I think is kind of Paramount's new magic number as far as. Which again, that's crazy to think about. It's throwaway line here on this episode because that's like, I don't know, it's our 5 years, at least whatever production. I don't even know what production timeline we're on right now, but yeah, I'm just excited for hopefully new Star Trek soon as far as Stranger Worlds goes because I know there's Lower Decks around the corner.
Yeah. Which I'm excited for, obviously. But yeah, no, the Sam Kirk things are really interesting. One of the cool things about that ending in Lost in Translation is the visual. Like, it's easy to kind of hone in on Kirk, Spock, and Uhura at the table on the one side of the frame, but as it pulls out, you see Sam Kirk standing at the bar by himself, miserable, eating his cookie, with nobody, not talking to anybody, and isolated off on his own. I think the visual storytelling there, kind of foreshadowing he's gonna go off and do his own thing, away from this newfound family. Makes sense, and I think it makes sense that he wouldn't. I think what we see in Lost in Translation, the way he interacts with his brother, it makes sense that he would not want to serve on the Enterprise under his brother, and he would make a decision to do his own thing. And I think the more they play that, the more potent that is. It makes, yet again, when Kirk finds his dead brother on that planet, and the way it's been up to this point, it's like, oh shit, he had a brother, and that's surprising. We didn't know that at the time, and that's sad. It sucks for Kirk. But now, when you have this show under your belt, and you get to that, and you see that happen, and you know some of that history, it carries a little more weight. Like there's something to that that you can bring with yourself. It's Operation Annihilate. So it's another little, extra piece of context that Stranger Worlds is giving the original show. Jeff says he'd like to see Pike in some first contact situations. Was more of an explorer in season 3. More of him coming to terms with his future. Love season 2. Across the board, lots of good, compelling episodes. Absolutely. My dad talking about the to be continued, reminding him of the Menagerie cliffhanger. Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
They only had to wait a week, and the old shows it was 3 months. Those days are over. Waiting for cliffhangers.
Yeah, it takes summer off. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting things. I mean, like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. That they did a musical, they could do anything they want. At this point, I think that goes to show that no genre is off the table, no tone is off the table. I'd like to see maybe a western of some sort somehow. I think harkening
that feels
back to
really TOS.
TOS, Pike with the horse in the original show, and he's on a horse in the beginning of the first episode. Like, he's comfortable in that. He's from the Mojave Desert. I think there's some really juicy opportunities there if they can crack a story that like Subspace Rhapsody makes, like, tackling these tones and feelings feel natural within the Star Trek universe. I think there's a really cool opportunity to give Pike something cool to do with that kind of a story. And it's, unlike the musical, Star Trek's tackled westerns before a variety of times in different ways. Spectre of the Gun, Fistful of Data's, North Star, like, not Far From Home, Discovery. They even the newer shows have done western stuff, but the show definitely feels like it could really lean into it. So
Yeah, a concert in their like new kind of like bar hangout area, I think would be cool. I
Yeah.
think that would be a really really cool homage to the original series. I think would be fun too.
For sure.
And TNG.
TNG. They used to
has
do that.
concerts like every Thursday. You know, it
Yeah.
feels like it's something on the
Classical.
ship. Like
Yep.
yeah.
Data on the violin, and I think Chief O'Brien would play the cello. You know, it was a thing. It was very much in the social rotation, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, but Spock with his new instrument like that.
Yeah.
Just
Horus singing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. That's the beauty of the show. It can do anything. It really, anything you can think of that you can, as long as you come up with a Star Trek conceit to make it make sense, which isn't that hard. They really can do anything they want. So, love Strange New Worlds. I think it's I think sort of the culmination of all the new Star Trek. A lot of the previous new shows have tried a lot of new things and tried to bring the modern format to Star Trek. In my opinion, very successfully. I think they've breathed new life into Star Trek, but this feels like finding that magic sauce of doing old school Star Trek with new school capabilities, production values, using emotional continuity, but really being true to the old format. And it's a great show. It's definitely, I think it's my favorite of the new shows for sure, as like a total package. I love Picard season 3 as like an individual season. I love everything Discovery has brought to the table. I'm a fan of all of it. But if I had to pick like comfort food, what is the currently running show? It's Strange New Worlds for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's probably my favorite. Yeah, modern era show for sure.
Yeah. All right, so I think that'll do it for today. We're coming up on that hour. We're not already past it. We are past it. We went for a while today. But this was a lot of fun. There's a lot to talk about. We could have dived in even deeper with Subspace Rhapsody and Hegemony if they were true episode review topics. We would have, but we wanted to kind of look at the season as a whole and just kind of touch on the individual episodes. And yeah, we could sit here all day and talk about Strange New Worlds, but I think we covered it as well as we're going to cover it today. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more. Lower Decks will be starting right around that time, and stay tuned for more Star Trek discussion here on Trek Live.
Yep. We'll see you guys. I want to thank everybody for watching. The discussion doesn't stop here, as Bill said. Twitter and Discord are probably the best places to do that. We look forward to seeing you guys there or in 2 weeks. Thank everybody for watching. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Take care, everybody.